how do eyes differentiate colors? That's an interesting question. I mean, these are great questions to really understand conceptual science conceptually. So if you want to understand how eyes differentiate colors, eyes, you to understand the geometry of the eye, you to understand the optics of the eye, you to understand the biochemistry of the eye and the physics of the eye. There's so much that goes into this. And all eyes are different. I mean, the eyes of various species are quite different. So human eyes are quite different from cat eyes, from dog eyes, from horse eyes, goat eyes, bee eyes, insect eyes, and so I mean, whales, fish, very different. But how does it happen? So let's understand the structure of the eye. Okay, you have the cornea, which is the outer surface. You can think of it as the outer surface of the eye, the glassy outer surface. Then you have the lens, the pupil and the lens through which light goes in, and at the back of the eye you have something called the retina. Okay, now the retina. So what happens is light comes into the eye. Light has various colors, various photons of various wavelengths. Okay, so this comes in through the cornea, goes in through the lens. It is collimated, let's say, through the lens, and focused onto the retina. So that's the optics. That's the optics of the eye, the geometry and the optics of the eye. So this retina is this layer at the back of the eye. And what does the retina contain? It contains what's called photoreceptor cells. And these cells come in two major categories: rods and cones. Okay, so the rod cells are responsible for vision in low light conditions. So when you are in low light conditions, you don't see color, do you? You only see gray, shades of gray. So the rod cells are responsible for vision in low light conditions, and they do not detect color. They are more sensitive to light, but they can't distinguish between the various wavelengths of light. So you can only see light and dark or shades of gray. So that's rods. Then you have cones. So the cone cells are responsible for color vision, and the cone cells, they function well. They function best in bright light. And at any given point in time, the light that's going into your eyes is activating the cones as well as the rods. But when it's bright light, you will your brain will in a you will perceive what the cone cells are telling you. In dark light, I mean in low light conditions, you will perceive more of what the rod cells are telling you. Okay, now this cone cells, there are three types of cone cells, and each of these types of cone cells is sensitive to different wavelengths of light. So you have the short cone cells, S cones, M cones, and L cones: short, medium, long. So the S cones are, like they say, like it's clear from the name, short cones. They are sensitive to short wavelengths of light, which correspond to essentially blue light. Then you have medium cones, M cones, which are sensitive to medium wavelengths, which correspond to green light. And then you have the long cones, L cones, that are sensitive to red light. Okay, so when the light hits the retina, it is absorbed by photopigments inside the cones and the rods. Not the rods, the cones, because rods don't have they don't really have photopigments. So each type of cone cell absorbs light at different wavelengths, and this absorption of light causes a chemical change in these photopigments, and this chemical change generates electrical signals that are transmitted through the optic nerve, which crosses itself behind you. Okay, inside which it crosses like that, and then that signal goes into the brain, and then the brain's supercomputer processes these signals from different types of cone cells, and the way the relative activation of each type of cone determines the color that your brain perceives. So if the short, medium, and long SML cones are equally activated, then the brain will perceive that as white light. But if you have more S cones that are being activated, the brain will see that as blue light. If you have more M cones, medium cones activated, then the brain will see that as green light. And if you have predominant activation of L cones, then the brain will see that as red. So over here behind me, you will see red color. So that light is activating the L cones in your brain. Got it? And it's RGB, red, green, and blue. And if you are a designer, if you work with colors and all that, then you will know that all colors are a superposition, a combination of RGB. Okay, so that the same process happens in the brain. There is additive color mixing. So the different combinations of different wavelengths of light creates new colors. Okay, so red and green, if they combine, you get yellow. So that's how it happens. So that essentially is how the eyes sense colors. It's not just the eyes that are sensing colors, it's actually the brain that's sensing colors. The eyes are simply sending signals to the brain depending on what kind of cells in the retina are being activated, whether it is the rods or the cones. If it's rods, it's just shades of gray. If it's the cones, which kinds of cones are being activated, and what the additive color mixing of all of that is tells you what color that light is. So light is just wavelengths of photons. Okay, and the brain actually literally color codes all that to help us make sense of the external world. The external world is extremely complicated, but we see it as a simplified version of what it actually is.